And let me share my screen. Okay, everybody see the title slide there? Okay. Of course, you can't say anything.
Looks great to me. I like that puffin.
Thank you.
Sort of overshadows the train, you know.
There you go. Let me get the chat called up here so I can see what's going on with chat. There we go. All right. Once again, for folks who are new to Zoom, if you have the people down the right side of your screen, you can minimize them by using the little icons at the top of that panel with the people. You can see just me, or you can turn it off completely. I do take questions during the show. Easiest way to ask a question during the show is to hit your space bar, hold it down. You are unmuted while your space bar is depressed, and then release your space bar when you're done with your question. With all that, off we go. We're going to start off with some stuff I shot recently up in Central. First off, I'm going to start off with my promo again. I got this. I'm going into the book publishing business, and this is my first book I'm bringing out. 106 pages, softcover book on stuff I've shot in South Jersey over the past 40 years. Going back to 1980, a few shots are slightly older than that. I'm hoping to put it on press around May 15th and then ship the first ones out the first part of June. I have a pre-publication sale going on right now. It's $39 plus $4 shipping. It'll be $44 after June 1st. Here's a couple of sample spreads. This is one of the Cape May Seashore Line spreads. And this is the Winchester and Western and Conrail on Conrail shared assets around Vineland. So anyhow, this book is now ready for pre-order, and you can pre-order it at www.railroadphotographer.com/books. There's a PayPal link there. You can order the book. So and with that, before you get to Sandy Hook, which is in central Jersey up on the Atlantic Ocean, Sandy Hook is a 4-mile or so peninsula that sticks out from New Jersey. Before you get there, on the mainland in Highlands, New Jersey, are the Twin Lights at Navesink. Here we see the Twin Lights, and what we have here are the lights plus the old powerhouse. When the lights were first built, they built a powerhouse to generate the power for the lights, and they were electric. That proved to be too expensive, and fairly early on, the powerhouse was shut down, the equipment removed, and replaced by oil. They lit the lights using oil after that, and then once commercial power became available, they went to commercial power. As the building says, these were built in 1862. This is the first order Fresnel lens that used to be in one of the towers. It has been taken down. It is now inside of the powerhouse on display. Moving on to Sandy Hook, we're heading for Fort Hancock. And Fort Hancock, there are a couple of old Nike missile sites still standing. And this one here is fairly accessible right from a parking lot. During the summer, when there's not COVID, they give tours. The Nike sites used to surround the major U.S. cities on the East Coast, ostensibly to intercept incoming aircraft that might have had bombs with them. In the grand scheme of things, the Nike sites were fairly short-lived because once ICBMs came in, there's no need for airplanes to deliver bombs. And without airplanes, there's no need for Nike sites.
So if these were Nike sites, does that mean my shoes are going to blow up?
Possibly. Possibly. Like I said, they give tours of this one here in the summertime when there's not a pandemic going on. But this is all shootable right over the fence from a trail and a parking lot right there next to the site. Heading up to Fort Hancock, I really hadn't done a whole lot of research leading up to this. I was heading for the lighthouse at Sandy Hook. That's what my primary goal was. When I got to Fort Hancock, I'm like, wow, this place is loaded with cool stuff to photograph. I shoot a lot of the man-made stuff. I guess that's probably because my interest started off with shooting trains. But if you're a wildlife photographer, there's stuff up there. You got birds, got deer. This little guy here, I walked almost right up to him and took his picture. Was not scared at all. The problem with the chat is people like to be comedians on the chat, Mr. Godfrey. And of course, on the far side of that wall there is the Atlantic Ocean. There are several batteries still standing at Fort Hancock. Battery Potter is right on the road and has been nicely upgraded and restored. And there's some cool brick buildings around the area too as well. Some has been restored, some has not. A lot of it's fenced off, but really a cool place for photography. Sandy Hook sits almost directly south of New York City. We're looking at the Manhattan skyline there in the distance, although it's probably Staten Island sitting between us and it. And just out of the picture off to the right, you can see into Brooklyn. You can see the rides at Coney Island. The housing is being slowly restored at Fort Hancock. As you can see, the biggest problem is sagging porches. But some really nice buildings on the property. The military is entirely gone from here. This is the backside of the fire station with the lighthouse. Sandy Hook Light is the oldest continuously operated lighthouse in the United States. And of course, the keeper's house is there as well. So I stuck around to sunset, mostly to shoot the lighthouse at sunset, but there were some great opportunities going on just beyond here, out on the water, facing New Jersey mainland, where the company houses as the sun was going down. So I ran back and forth between the lighthouse and the non-ocean side of Sandy Hook, shooting stuff.
Is the lighthouse open to climb?
When there was not a pandemic, yes, it is. Unfortunately, there was just enough haze on the horizon that the disk of the sun wasn't a nice disk when it hit the water or the other shore there on their side there.
Going back to that last picture, Steve.
Yeah.
In between the two houses on the far left, is that a little bit of the Earl Naval Weapon Station that you
It
can
should,
see?
yeah. Between the two houses on the left, across the bay there, that's the Naval Weapons Station Earl. It's got a 3-mile long pier that is rail served. They built that so they could handle munitions off of ships. And if something blew up, it wouldn't be anywhere near anything on land. It would be 3 miles out. There have been excursions on that railroad, on the Naval Railroad, going out onto the pier in the past. They were really cool excursions. And this one here, oops, guess I didn't. Sun's now pretty much gone. Just a little bit of twilight in the sky. So that was Fort Hancock. I hit a few other things on that trip, and you'll be seeing those in 2 weeks. Now to the railroad portion of the show. We're going to head down to Tennessee and visit some of the tourist lines down there. And we're going to start off in the city of Memphis, which has a streetcar system, which is actually part of the transit system. So it's not entirely a tourist operation. It does serve some transit use as well. They use cars mostly from Melbourne, Austria, and I think there's a couple of Portuguese cars here too as well. I'm not exactly sure what Knuffle Bunny is. The arcade restaurant, that's across from the old Illinois Central Station. It was the favorite restaurant of Elvis Presley when he lived in Memphis. And he had a favorite table in there, and you can go in and have lunch in the very spot that Elvis did. That's the Illinois Central Station in the background there, behind the two cars. Still served by the city of New Orleans. There is a diamond between the trolley cars and a mainline railroad. Here we see the trolley crossing over the Illinois Central passenger line into the city. A couple of local freights use this line, and the city of New Orleans uses this line. I think I mentioned in a previous program that at one time there was only one diamond crossing between a railroad and a trolley car left in the United States. That was the SEPTA crossing of the Baltimore and Ohio in Darby, Pennsylvania. But with the proliferation of new streetcar systems, more and more cities are now having places where streetcars can cross mainline railroads. When I was here in Memphis on this day, it was a little bit of a drizzle going on, and a homeless man came up to us and started talking. He had a squirt bottle and a roll of paper towels, and he said he was staying at the shelter, and the shelter gave them gave the residents the cleaning supplies, squeegee, stuff like that, to go out during the day, and they weren't allowed to ask for money. But they offered to clean windshields, and if you want to give them a tip, that was fine. Of course, it was raining, so didn't need my windshield cleaned. But he said, "Well, can I give you a dinner recommendation?" And I said, "Sure." He says, "If you're going to be in town tonight," he says, "go to the Rendezvous for the ribs." I said, "Okay." Sounded like a good tip, and I could see he was trying to do the right thing. So I gave him a little bit of money. Went to the Rendezvous that night. Man, that tip was the best $5 I ever spent. awesome ribs. Here's the Memphis Pyramid. This was built as a sports arena originally, I guess for the Memphis Grizzlies NBA team. It is now a Bass Pro Shop since the shot was taken. We're going to head on over to Nashville to the Tennessee Central Railroad Museum, which operates on the old Tennessee Central. This was an excursion during the National Railway Historical Society convention a few years ago, using this E8 locomotive out to Cookeville. Here we are in Cookeville, nice Coca-Cola sign in the background. This is a photo run by we did on that trip. On the return trip, they just ran around the train with the locomotive. So this fairly ugly former BNSF, former Santa Fe war bonnet diesel, which has seen better days, led the trip back. The trackage is now Nashville and Eastern. So I'm not sure what the NS on the nose stands for. Obviously, it was BNSF at one time. They just took off the B and the F and left NS, but I'm not sure exactly why. That night, we did a night photo session at the museum, including this Louisville and Nashville Jeep and the E unit. The Tennessee Central at one time ran right across the middle of Tennessee, west to east, east to west. The middle part of the Tennessee Central is now gone. And now if a train wants to get from Memphis to, say, Knoxville, it has to leave Tennessee at some point. There is no longer an all Tennessee route across the state. Did this caboose scene while we were there that night. We're heading over to Oak Ridge, not far from Knoxville now, to the Southern Appalachia Railway Museum and its railroad, the Secret City Scenic. It's called the Secret City Scenic because it's in a secret city. At least it was a secret city. It's in Oak Ridge, which was the location of the Manhattan Project. The Wheat Station, which has been, which the railroad uses for their passenger trains, was actually a guardhouse back when the military was on the property here. And I started going down there many years ago when Bart Jennings, who was very active with the museum and still is, invited me down to do some night photo sessions, including this one here. That's Bart's wife, Sarah, boarding the car. This shot here, using two of the railroad's alcoves, was a bit difficult. You got this wide open space between the trains to light up somehow. This is back in the Lumidyne days where I was running around with one flash and painting with light. So the key here was we staged the crew in the middle of the scene. Then I would throw flash from back here by the cameras. Then I would run forward, duck behind the crew, and then throw flash from behind them to light up the locomotives. We did this photo charter, or the museum put it on, using Louisville Nashville C420 1315. This is a really cool charter, a photo event. Nice freight train, good looking Alco on the front, lots of smoke from the Alco. And I had never really seen Louisville and Nashville when it was actually an operating railroad. Seen a lot of photos of it through the works of people like Ron Flannery, and seeing this locomotive running with a big yellow nose and a big old L&N on the front, it brought all those old Ron Flannery photos to life for me. It was really cool. This is Garland McKee. Garland is also a prolific writer and photographer from down south. We had been out shooting this photo train all morning long, and got to the lunch break, and Garland and I both agreed that if it got cloudy in the afternoon and and the shots weren't going to be as good, we were happy because the morning was just so phenomenal that we wouldn't complain if it clouded up in the afternoon. Well, it clouded up and we complained. This is a shot in the afternoon with the sun under. So we came up with a diabolical plan. The engineer on this train was Steve Forrest, and Garland and I invited Steve out to dinner to execute our plan. And then as the meal was progressing, we sprung our trap. We're like, gee, Steve, too bad you're running the train all day and didn't get any photos for yourself. Wouldn't it be cool to take the train out again tomorrow and do more photos with it? Well, Steve thought about it for a minute or two. He said, yeah, that would be cool. So we found a crew and he joined us, and we were back out the next day in sun shooting again, about 5 or 6 of us. We all chipped in to pay for the fuel, and had our own little photo train to ourselves for the rest of the afternoon. If you're a Baptist, you're all set. Anything else, you gotta look somewhere else. And a night photo with the 1315. I've been down to Oak Ridge for other photo trains, including this one here. I'm not sure why they used this fairly unpainted X-Seaboard System GP30. We had a photo train with it one time. Always a lot of fun, though. The people down there are really good, and I always enjoyed going down to Oak Ridge. One of the engines they have down there is this Seaboard Coastline SD45. And Seaboard Coastline wound up selling a bunch of their SD45s to the Clinchfield. They did not sell this one to the Clinchfield, but they could have. They sold about a dozen of them to the Clinchfield, and the Clinchfield painted them up and put them in service with just some minor changes. Well, for the 75th running of the Clinchfield Santa train a couple years ago, they wanted to do an all Clinchfield consist. They had CSX got an original Clinchfield F unit to lead the train, and to assist the F unit, they decided they would use this locomotive. What if this locomotive had gotten sold to the Clinchfield? Well, it very well could have looked like this. This is what CSX did to the engine to get it ready for the Santa train. Gave it the same treatment the Clinchfield gave their SD45s when they first acquired them from Seaboard. This is down in Kingsport, right before the Santa train ran a couple years ago. Moving along, we come to Knoxville. We're on the Three Rivers Rambler. This was a test shot. A few of us came up here to do a night shot just to test the concept on the Rambler, and we did okay. Got some decent stuff that night. I was back with Historic Transport Preservation. They run photo charters, led by John Kraft. And this is Southern 280 number 154. And we used it on a little short Southern freight train for our photo charter. Here it is crossing the Holston River. The Holston feeds into the,
I think it's the French Broad River.
French Broad River, and the two form the Tennessee River to continue on from there. Thank you very much. Yep, the French Broad.
Yeah, that shot you can't really get. I think that shot's from private property.
It is. We had permission to do this shot here.
I figured that. That's That's honestly the best view of the bridge you're going to get anywhere.
It is, yeah. And we did a couple of night photos. That's the TJ Gaffney from the Steam Railroading Institute in Owasso, Michigan. But the steam guys get around all over the place. He came down to Knoxville to pose for shots for us with the 154 with a Southern boxcar posed at the water tank. Back again for another charter. This was put on by Dynamo Productions. And the 154 was done up as Tallulah Falls number 78, just to be different. You see the big 78 on the tender there. Here it is coming off the Holston River Bridge. And here it is with, you can see the 78, the number plate on the front and the lettering on the tender. Unfortunately, right after this photo run by here, the 78 on the front, which is a magnet, blew off. We couldn't find it. So we had no front number plate. So fortunately, we had somebody back at the shop quickly retrieve the standard 154 rectangular number plate, brought it out. The rest of the stuff's all magnets on the tender, covering up the standard Southern Railway stuff. So we did a quick conversion back to the Southern 154 for the rest of the day because we couldn't find the 78 number plate. Night shot at their headquarters, which is right next to downtown Knoxville, not very far from Naylor Stadium. And that's Chris Brang. He's his hobby is, other than being involved in steam locomotives, his hobby is to be a reenactor. He's posed on charters for us as everything from a Civil War soldier to a World War II soldier to a variety of railroad jobs. He just enjoys dressing up and being part of the scene. Early morning at the water tank. Unfortunately, the yellow vest kind of detracts from it, but I really like the silhouette with the tank and the engineer leaning out the window, the cab window. We did this shot here with the 154 on the bridge in the background coming off the Holston River Bridge. That's Chris again with his girlfriend, Christiana. Did this shot at the cemetery just off the end of the bridge. And one of the things I did down there back in 2006, I believe it was, Bill Purdy, who headed up the Southern Railway steam program for many, many, many years in the 60s and 70s. He came down to Knoxville to do one more session as an engineer. 90 years old, but they got him up into the cab. And Bill got to run a steam locomotive one more time. He passed away a couple of years later. Heading down to Pigeon Forge. Hooray for Dollywood. They got an ex-white passing Yukon 282 narrow gauge Mikado. And they got quite a bit of track and a decent grade. It's a pretty cool ride for an amusement park. It took us about one or two runs to figure out exactly where to stand. So when they closed the gates off at the crossing here, we could be right where the gate would come down and be first in line to get this shot here. The Chattanooga Choo-Choo, the old terminal station, was converted. It's converted to a hotel. Still is a hotel. But for a while, they had a streetcar that circled the grounds. And when the NRHS had its convention in Chattanooga back in 2007, I asked the hotel if we could use the streetcar for night photos. And they said, sure. They gave it to us for free. So we had the streetcar all to ourselves at night. Chattanooga historian Justin Strickland at the controls. And we went around the grounds of the Choo-Choo doing night photos. Unfortunately, the hotel has changed hands and the new owners decided they do not need a streetcar. And all this is torn out now. But you can see the old servicing. They said this was Terminal Station and the old locomotive servicing area was still there. All gone now, unfortunately. And Terminal Tower was still standing back in 2007. Unfortunately, this is now gone as well. And then from there, we're going to head over to Chattanooga to the Tennessee Valley Railway Museum. Here we see their Army 280, number 610, coming out of the Missionary Ridge Tunnel. This is on their own line. It runs about 3.5, 4 miles from Grand Junction, which is where they stage most of their stuff, down to their shop at East Chattanooga. Here was the station at the shop. This was back in the Lumidyne days. They had me come down and do a night photo session. This is all film and Lumidyne. That's the Grand Junction station. They built that new. That's not an original station. That's their base of operations for their tourist trains. And this is the Missionary Ridge Tunnel. We did this shot. This was the Lumidyne days. So we posed the 610 outside the tunnel. I had to throw a flash from behind the cameras here, then run in the dark to the end of the tunnel, and then somehow get out of the way on either side to throw flash on the nose of the locomotive. This is, like I said, all film days. No idea if I was doing it right. No idea how it was going to look. No test shots, no nothing. And then 4501 was there, and this was Southern's big fan trip engine back in the 1960s and 70s. I only saw it run once in Southern Steam Special Service. They had it wired up for lights for the night photo session. I always wondered if I'd ever see 4501 under steam, because I for the most part, I missed it when it was running. Well, stand by. There it is, coming out of Missionary Ridge Tunnel. The museum has restored it, and they use it on quite a few trips each year. This was a charter done by Dynamo Productions. Pouring rain. This is at the Grand Junction station. The photographers are all up underneath the eaves of the station. That guy there, he stood out in the rain and hooped up orders for photographers and got soaked, just soaked because it was pouring rain. The museum trackage is about 4.5, 5 miles long, maybe. And we're out for the day here. There's quite a few photo angles, especially with the tunnel on the line. Anyhow, our lunch stop was right after this at the Grand Junction station. And even though it was still pouring, a lot of us went into the station, got them to open up the gift shop. And most of us bought dry shirts to put on, at least to have on while we ate lunch at the station. They didn't stay dry very long once we went back outside again. This is from somebody's front yard. We were doing run-bys out in the street here, and the lady came up out to her door to see what was going on. And I'm like, hey, do you mind if we borrow your yard for a photo line? She said, no, go ahead. So we put the photo line here underneath the trees. I thought I'd be asking a little bit too much if I asked her if we could remove the security sign as well. I didn't want to really push our luck here. Here's Travis Gordon. He's a volunteer there, the 4501 at East Chattanooga. They do run diesel trips on the museum trackage sometimes. Here we see a Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia unit, very sharp. And this bridge is just out of the Grand Junction station. We were setting up a night shot of the unit, and I had a light set up to light up the trees behind it. And Norfolk Southern runs adjacent to the museum trackage here. And the train was coming. I thought, you know what? I got a light over there. I'm just gonna throw a flat. I'm gonna push my trigger and see what happens. And that light was aimed just right to light up the Norfolk Southern train on the bridge in the background. So that kind of worked out for me. 4501 and 610, they run down to Somerville, Georgia sometimes. Here we see them at Tryon, Georgia, coming north with an NRHS special. This was kind of an interesting day. The convention was based in Nashville, and they bussed everybody over to Chattanooga to ride down to Somerville. But one way only. They didn't have time because of the hours of service for the buses to have everybody ride the train back to Chattanooga, then back by bus to Nashville. So they got to Somerville, unloaded the train, everybody got on buses and left. And this is the empty train going back by itself back up to Chattanooga. When I got to Chattanooga, a few of us grabbed some strobes while they're doing their switching in the yard there, putting the train away. We managed to get this night shot here. It wound up being a cover shot on Railfan. Basically a grab shot. Here we see one of the Somerville trips. This is going through Ross, Georgia, I believe. And old wool mill in the background. 630 and 4501. Oh yeah, you're right. Chris Ginzer just pointed out that the 610 is no longer with us. This is the 630, former Southern Railway 630. 610 is currently out of service. They've been using the 630 a lot lately. I get those two consolidations mixed up all the time. Here we see the 630 and the 4501 double heading. This is on a Pete Laro photo charter with a freight train. Pete Laro still hates us all because of this shot here. There's a photo line set up on both sides of the tracks here. The problem is the position of the car didn't work simultaneously for both sides of the tracks. One side of the tracks wanted the car move forward 5 feet. One other side wanted the car move back 10 feet, and got to like a shouting match on where to put the car. So finally, Pete just put the car where it was good for his shot, which is his trip. He's welcome to do that. But I've since learned that for scenes like this, always stay near Pete, because he'll put the cars where they need to be for the shot. Got down to Somerville. Go ahead. What was that?
So that's the secret.
It is. It is. Yeah. Yeah. If you got multiple pieces in the frame and it's not going to work from everywhere, camp out near Pete. Here we are at Somerville, Georgia, with a 630 and a 4501 with a old Atlanta police car. And back at the bridge at Tryon, the 4501 running by itself, heading back up towards Chattanooga. Here's a double header coming out of the Missionary Ridge Tunnel on the museum trackage. 4501 leading the 630. And on the bridge just outside of the museum grounds there at Grand Junction. Two railroaders, Stephen McIntyre and Mike Hunn. They were down there for these trips, and they wanted a night shot of themselves together. So I obliged and took this shot of them with the 4501. TVRM also runs excursions on the track over Hiwassee Loop, which is also in Georgia. But the museum's in Tennessee, so qualifies for this program. Here you see the train, one of their long excursion trains on one of the loop trips. This is Hiwassee Loop, and it is a loop. There's a train going over it, and it's going to break to its left and circle down. And then a few minutes later, it's going to come out from under the bridge. Same train. So I decided, what the heck? Let me just cheat just a little bit. So fake shot. I admit it, it's a fake shot. I would never try to pass this off as legit, but a little fun with Photoshop. Going to finish off back in Chattanooga. That's the National Cemetery off on the hillside and off to the right. And here you see Frisco 482, number 1522, leading Norfolk and Western's 484, number 611. On an NRHS trip coming back from the convention in Atlanta, Georgia. The reason I'm showing this is because there is something else in that cemetery that's really interesting. Now, this is where the photo is nowhere near as good as the thought. Here you see this. This is the 610. The 610 heading down to Somerville, going along Holtzclaw Avenue in Chattanooga, and we're in the cemetery. And on the right-hand side foreground, that is a monument to the general and of the great locomotive chase. And James J. Andrews and several of the Andrews Raiders are buried in that circle there around that monument. So it's an impossible shot to get with good light. Just doesn't work no matter what you do. But I just thought it was a way cool shot and way too cool to pass up. So that's that. That brings an end to the slides.